The afternoon Nene's world cracked open beneath her feet. She is carrying a small yellow gift bag with a red bow on top, walking behind her 10-year-old son Michael as he bounces ahead of her down the quiet street. It is a Saturday in early October, the kind of Lagos afternoon that smells of rain that has not yet decided to fall. Michael had received an invitation at school. His classmate Shola is turning 7, and the party is just one street behind their own compound in Bagada. Nene had almost not come. She had laundry inside, yam on the fire, a dozen small reasons to simply let Michael go alone and return. But something made her tie her wrapper properly, slip into her flat sandals, and follow him out the gate. She is still thinking about dinner when Michael stops at a compound she does not recognize and pushes the metal gate open with the confidence of a child who has been here before. If you have ever loved someone completely, trusted them with your whole chest, and then discovered that same person had been living a second life behind your back, stay with me till the end of this story. What happens in the next few minutes will reach places words rarely reach. Nene steps into the compound. It is a modest but well-kept bungalow, newer paint than most houses on the street. Small potted plants arranged neatly along the veranda railing. Children are already running in the yard, colorful balloons tied to a mango tree. A woman stands near the door, bright in a yellow Ankara, distributing small plates of puff-puff with the easy authority of a woman who is entirely at home. Then a voice comes from inside, a familiar voice, the kind that has called her name in the dark for 12 years, that has said, "Your jollof rice is the best in Lagos over 1,000 dinners," that she would recognize in the middle of a market or the middle of a storm. "Shola, come inside, the cake is ready." Nene goes still. The woman in the yellow Ankara turns toward the door and calls back warmly, her voice relaxed and affectionate. "James, the children are not ready, oh. Give them 5 more minutes." No music rises. The compound simply continues. Children laughing, balloons shifting in the breeze, while something cold and unbearably heavy settles deep into Nene's chest. James steps out of the door. He is wearing the blue polo shirt she ironed for him last weekend. She had noticed it was missing from the hanger on Monday and assumed he had worn it to the office. He is holding a plate of small chops. He is smiling the easy smile of a man who is entirely, unquestionably at home. His eyes find Nene across the compound. The plate in his hand does not fall, but his face does. For 3 full seconds, neither of them moves. Then Michael, completely oblivious, sprints past his father shouting, "Daddy, you're here too." The woman in yellow turns. Her eyes travel from James to Nene. In that single glance, Nene reads everything she needs to read. Not surprise, not confusion. What she sees on the woman's face is something far worse. Recognition. This woman already knows exactly who Nene is. Nene does not scream. She does not slap anyone or throw the gift bag she is still holding. She simply looks at James and says, quietly enough that only he can hear, "How long?" He opens his mouth, closes it. She does not wait. She takes Michael firmly by the hand, turns around, and walks back out of the compound. She will hear the answer, but not here, not surrounded by birthday balloons and the laughter of children who have no idea what is breaking. To understand the full weight of what Nene walks away from that afternoon, you need to understand what she walked into 12 years ago. Nene was 27 when she married James Chukwuma in a small, warm ceremony in Ogun State. She was the second daughter of a retired school teacher and a market woman who had raised their children on one philosophy: work honestly and treat people the way you want to be treated. Nene had grown up believing that what a family builds together, it keeps together. She was not a woman searching for wealth or spectacle. She was searching for steadiness. James gave her that. Or so she believed. He was charming without being slick, driven without being cold. He had a small logistics company when they met, 2 delivery vans, and a modest client list operating out of a rented office in Mushin. Nene left her banking position in Ibadan and moved to Lagos for him. She invested her own savings in expanding the business. She kept the accounts herself in the early years, designed the invoice templates, followed up on payments, covered the salary shortfall twice when contracts fell through. When the company grew and James hired drivers and a small office team, people in their community praised his hustle and his vision. They praised him at church. They praised him in the family WhatsApp group. Very few of them noted that Nene was the one sitting at the kitchen table past midnight, reconciling the book so James could wake up and look like a man who had it all together. They had Michael in the 2nd year, and James named him with the pride of a man who believed his legacy had begun. He was a present father when he was present, teaching Michael to tie his laces, watching cartoons with him on Saturday mornings. But James was often away, Port Harcourt, Abuja, Aba, always a delivery to supervise, always a client to manage. Nene raised that boy largely alone. And she did it without bitterness because she understood that building something takes sacrifice. She trusted the sacrifice, she trusted him. Their street knew them as a solid couple. His best friend Abimbola, a tall, easy-laughing man who worked in insurance, was almost always at their table. Pepper soup, football, long evenings of noise and laughter. His mother, Beatrice, traveled from Anambra twice a year, ate Nene's ofe onugbu, and told every visitor who came to the house that her son had married a woman with both beauty and sense. The neighbor Felicia, a retired civil servant who sat on a veranda every evening with a cup of tea and an unobstructed view of the junction between their street and the next, would wave at Nene on her way to the market and say, "Your husband's car passed early this morning, oh." The man works hard. Nene built 12 years on that foundation. She does not yet know, walking home that October afternoon with Michael's hand in hers and confusion still ringing in her ears, that the foundation was shared, that a woman named Chisom has been receiving the same man, the same charm, and a significant portion of the same logistics income for just as long, that the compound on the next street, the one with the neat potted plants and the yellow Ankara and the birthday balloons, has been the other side of her marriage this entire time. James comes home 3 hours later. Nene is sitting at the dining table. Dinner is on the stove, untouched. Michael is in his room. When James enters, he is already wearing the face of a man who has rehearsed several versions of this conversation on the drive. He begins with the word she has always hated most. "Nene, let me explain." She does not look up immediately. When she does, her voice is quieter than he expects. "Before you explain anything, tell me one true thing. How long?" His jaw moves. 11 years. The number lands in the room like something dropped from a great height. 11 years. Michael is 10, which means James walked her down the aisle and walked Chisom into a second household within the same calendar year. She asks, her voice still controlled in a way that frightens him more than shouting would. "And the children over there?" "2. A pause that stretches too long. "Shola is 7. The younger one is 4. Nene closes her eyes. When she opens them, James is studying the table. "Does she know about me?" she asks. He takes too long to answer. "Yes." It is that single yes that breaks something in her. Not the affair, not the years of double living, but the understanding that she was the only person in this entire story who had not known. Her husband knew. Chisom knew. And as the days that follow will reveal, others had known too. Her neighbor Success, a small cheerful woman 2 houses down who runs a provisions table from her parlor window, had seen James's car parked regularly on the next street for years. She had assumed he had a client there, a relative. She tells Nene this now, wringing her hands, when Nene asks quietly if she ever noticed anything. "I thought it was business." Success says, eyes wet. I swear on my mother's grave. Nene. If I had known it was a woman, I would have broken your door down the same night. Nene believes her. What she finds harder to absorb is Felicia. Felicia, the woman at the junction with the full view of everything, calls Nene to her veranda on a Monday evening and looks at her for a long, quiet moment. Then she speaks with the bluntness of an older woman who has decided she is done protecting comfortable lies. My daughter, I saw that man go in and out of that compound for years. I saw the woman. I watched the children grow from babies to school age. Every time I told myself it was not my place. I told myself, who are you to break a home? She sets her teacup down. I was wrong. As they say, the elder who watches a child put their hand in fire and says nothing has also burned the child. The conversation with Abimbola is shorter. Nene does not ask him if he knew. She tells him she already knows he knew and asks him only why he said nothing. The silence on the line is long enough to be its own full answer. James is my brother from another mother, he says finally, voice heavy with the specific guilt of a man who chose loyalty to the wrong person for too long. I told him to end it, many times. He never did. I kept telling myself it was not my place to destroy your marriage. She thanks him quietly and ends the call. The hardest conversation still comes from Beatrice. Nene calls James's mother in Anambra one Tuesday evening, phone steady in her hand. She tells her what she has found. There is a pause on the line. Then Beatrice, the woman who ate her food and called her a woman with sense, and told her she was the daughter Anambra sent back to bless their family, sighs the sigh of a woman unsurprised and says, Nene, these things happen in marriages. A man with responsibilities will sometimes have arrangements. What matters is that you are the legal wife. Your position is not in danger. Nene looks at 12 years of family photographs on the dining room wall. Michael's first birthday, Christmas mornings, her wedding picture, James smiling like a man who had found the one thing worth keeping. Mama, she says at last, I want you to know I heard you clearly, and I want you to know this conversation has answered every remaining question I had. She ends the call. By mid-November, James is no longer sleeping in the house on Adeleke Street. He has moved openly into Chisholm's compound on the next street. There is no formal announcement. He simply stops coming home. His clothes disappear in small batches. One morning, Nene wakes to find the socket where he charged his phone sitting empty, and she understands that a decision has been made without consulting her at all. 3 days later, he sends a message asking her to manage the house while he sorts himself out. He says he will still take care of Michael. By the end of the month, the household money he used to transfer has not arrived. She does not collapse. She has spent 12 years learning that collapse is something she cannot afford, but she does grieve. She gives herself that much. Ruth, her younger sister, boards a bus from Ibadan the same day she hears and arrives with 2 bags and no lectures. She finds Nene standing in the kitchen at midnight, staring at a pot she has not turned on. Tears dried on her face like she forgot they were there. Ruth does not rush to fill the silence with wisdom. She simply moves the pot, sits her sister down, and makes tea. Later, when the house is quiet and Michael is asleep, she takes Nene's hand and says, You did not fail this marriage. You were the only one who was actually in it. Nene looks at her. He took 11 years from me, Ruth. Her sister does not release her hand. He cannot take the next one. The weeks that follow reveal who Nene truly is. She pulls out 12 years of business records. Every invoice, every account statement, every vendor contract she helped negotiate. She engages a lawyer, a thorough and unhurried woman who moves through documents the way a surgeon moves through a procedure. What the lawyer finds is not accidental. Over several years, payments logged as vendor expenses had been routed to a second account. A company vehicle whose insurance was settled through the business had been sitting permanently at Chisholm's compound. James had been running 2 households on 1 income by quietly helping himself to the business that Nene had helped build. The law is slower than heartbreak, but it moves. By the time it is finished, Nene does not only keep the house, she keeps her equity in the business, the client relationship she personally maintained, and a settlement that acknowledges, on paper, formally with a judge's signature, what 12 years of invisible contribution is worth when measured honestly. James does not fight it as fiercely as she expected. Perhaps because Chisholm, as the months unfold, begins to understand what it means to be the woman a man runs to, rather than the woman he stands beside. The romance of an open secret dims quickly when there is no longer a business being quietly drained to fund 2 lifestyles. A man stripped of the financial arrangement that made his deception sustainable discovers that 1 honest household is significantly harder to maintain than 2 deceptive ones. Within the year, the compound on the next street has a "To Let" sign at the gate. Nene, meanwhile, is too occupied with her own rebuilding to spend energy watching his unraveling. She expands her fabric trade from a personal side business into a proper boutique in Gbagada, anchored on custom Ankara and lace sourcing. She hires 2 young women, recent graduates with more ambition than opportunity, and trains them with the patience of someone who knows what it costs to be capable and overlooked. She renovates the house. She repaints the bedroom first, because that is where the ghost was thickest. She sends Michael to a better school and sits with him at his new desk on the first night, and helps him unpack his books, and tells him, in simple words, that what happened between his father and mother was never about him. Ruth moves permanently to Lagos to help with the boutique. Within 2 years, the sisters are running something people come to not just for fabric, but for the particular ease of being around women who have survived something heavy and found on the other side of it a way to laugh again. Beatrice calls once, 8 months after the divorce is finalized. She says she wants to visit. Nene is warm but clear. "Mama, I carry nothing against you, but the kind of family you offered me is not something I am bringing back into my home. You are welcome to see Michael, but I need you to understand that I have reorganized my life, and I am not returning to any arrangement that asks me to make myself small." Beatrice does not visit, but she calls Michael on his birthday every year without fail. Nene always makes sure Michael picks up the phone. She refuses to use her pain to interrupt a boy's relationship with his grandmother. This, perhaps, says more about who Nene is than anything she did in the crisis itself. James reappears in Michael's life in pieces over time. A school visit, a holiday phone call. He is quieter now, thinner. The ease departed from his face. One afternoon, he appears at the boutique door while Nene is arranging a new display of Aso Oke. He stands there a moment, taking in the shop, the staff, the evidence of a life that did not wait for him. "I am sorry," he says. And then, because he is a man who always knew how to find the precise word, "I wasted you." Nene smooths a fold in the fabric without turning immediately. When she looks at him, it is the way you look at a place you used to live, with recognition, but without longing. "You tried to," she replies, "but I would not let you finish." She does not ask him to leave. She also does not invite him to stay. He stands at the door a moment longer, then goes. That is the last time they have a conversation that changes anything. In the end, 12 years of deception did not destroy Nene. They revealed her. The woman she had been all along. The one who kept accounts in the night, raised a son with steadiness, believed faithfully in the life she was building. That woman was always there, standing in a shadow that was never hers to carry. The shadow lifted. She stepped forward. And the man who kept a second family on the next street while she slept in their bed, He did not lose her because she was not enough. He lost her because he was not honest enough to deserve her. As the elders say, the goat that grazes in 2 compounds at once will one day find both gates closed. What we carry from Nene's story is this: loyalty is not an invitation to be deceived. A person who gives 12 years of their life, their money, their faith, and their silence to another human being does not owe that person their spirit as well. When the truth finally arrives, as it always does, the one who was honest all along does not need to arrange justice. They simply need to remain standing. The truth will arrange everything else. There is also this: the hardest betrayals are not from strangers. They come from the people who sat at our tables, ate our food, slept in our beds, and called us home while they were already somewhere else. Seeing that clearly is not bitterness. It is the beginning of wisdom. And wisdom is where the real rebuilding starts. What lesson stood out to you most in Nene's story? And if you were in her position, would you have handled Beatrice the way she did, keeping the door open for Michael while closing it for yourself? There are no wrong answers here. Tell us what you think in the comments below. Also, tell us where you are watching from today. Drop your location and we will greet you by name. If stories like this speak to something real in you, you are welcome here. Subscribe to Heritage Folktales Stories, where every story we tell is about real choices, real consequences, and real people who found their way through. Truth always finds its voice here. Thank you for watching.